The wind howled across the plains like a warning, carried with the scent of rain, and something more, something unfamiliar. I was alone on my ranch that night, the cattle quiet, the dogs restless, and the granary doors locked tight against the chill. I should have been asleep, yet the uneasy feeling in my gut kept me pacing the floor of my small cabin. Out here, on the edge of the frontier, every sound could mean danger. Every shadow could hide a threat. It began with a faint scratching, almost imperceptible at first, coming from the granary. I froze mid-step, heart pounding. No one should be out there, no one except the wind. Yet the scratching persisted, deliberate, persistent. I gripped the handle of my lantern and crept toward the granary, each step heavier than the last. The night seemed to stretch endlessly, the silence broken only by the wind and the faint, desperate sound of someone or something moving inside. I opened the door slowly. The creak echoed like a gunshot across the empty yard. And there she was, a woman, pale and trembling, with dark hair plastered to her face from the rain. Her eyes, wide and wild, met mine with a mixture of fear and defiance. She was Apache, and something in her gaze told me she had seen horrors beyond anything I could imagine. "Please, I need shelter," she whispered, voice barely audible over the storm. Her hands clutched at her tattered shawl, and I noticed the dirt and blood caked on her clothes. They are after me." I hesitated. The law was vague, and trouble with Apache warriors or bandits was common. Yet there was something in her tone, a quiet dignity despite her fear, that demanded my trust. I nodded and stepped aside. "Come in. Quickly." She stumbled forward, and I helped her inside. The lantern cast a flickering glow over the granary, illuminating stacks of grain sacks and forgotten tools. She sank to the floor, shivering, and I draped my coat over her shoulders. Her eyes held mine, searching, questioning. "My name is Liu," she said. "I was trying to reach my people, but her voice broke, and she shivered violently. They were gone." I didn't ask questions yet. Some truths are too heavy for the first night. I brought her a blanket, a cup of warm tea, and settled her in the corner. She sipped it slowly, eyes darting toward the door, as if expecting someone to break it down any second. And perhaps they would. Injustice had a way of finding the vulnerable. "You're safe here for now," I said quietly. "But you need to tell me what happened." She swallowed hard, then exhaled a long, shaky breath. "My village, my family, they were killed by those who claimed to bring order. They took what was ours. I escaped, but I have no one left. I don't know where to go." Her words cut through the night like a knife. I had heard stories of settlers' greed, of corrupt officials turning the frontier into a land of fear, but to hear it from someone who had survived it, it was different. It was personal. "You can stay here until the morning," I said. "Then we'll figure out what to do." The night dragged on. Rain hammered the roof. Wind tore at the walls, and I could feel her eyes on me, restless, uneasy. At some point, exhaustion overtook her, and she fell into a fitful sleep on the blanket. I watched her, unable to shake the sense that this night was only the beginning. Hours later, I awoke to a sound I wasn't expecting. Soft, frightened whispers. She was talking in her own language, voice low and urgent. My curiosity and concern got the better of me, and I crouched beside her. She stirred slightly, then froze, realizing she was not alone. Her eyes, dark and luminous, locked onto mine. You should not hear that," she whispered. "I need to understand," I said gently. "I can help you only if I know the truth." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "They are still coming," she said. "The ones who took my people. They think I know secrets. I do, but I can't tell them or I'll be dead." Her gaze drifted toward the window, toward the shadows outside. "I don't know if I can survive the night." I tightened my grip on the lantern. "We'll survive it together. But you must trust me." Her eyes softened just slightly. I trust you, but trust is a fragile thing." The hours passed and the storm subsided. By dawn, the wind had died down, leaving a fragile calm over the ranch. I stepped outside to check the perimeter. Nothing seemed amiss, yet I could feel the tension lingering like a heavy fog. When I returned, she was gone. Panic surged in my chest. I searched the cabin, the yard, and the granary. No sign of her. Then I heard it, a soft noise from behind the main barn. My heart stopped. I ran toward the sound, and there she was, collapsed on the hay, shivering but awake. Her face was pale, yet there was a strange resolve in her eyes. She looked at me, and for the first time I noticed the scars along her arms, faint but numerous, marks of a life spent surviving. You shouldn't have moved, I said, kneeling beside her. I couldn't stay inside, she whispered. I have to leave, but I can't go alone. Something in her voice, a combination of determination and despair, struck me deep. I realized that her journey wasn't just about survival. It was about reclaiming her dignity, her identity, and the justice that had been stolen from her. And somehow, she was asking me to be part of it. Before I could respond, the sound of hooves thundered across the property. Shadows flickered in the morning light. Figures emerging from the tree lean, armed, determined, and unmistakably dangerous. I grabbed her hand. Run, I shouted. She shook her head. I won't leave you. We have to, I said urgently, or we're done for. Her eyes met mine, fierce and unyielding. Then we faced them together. And that's when it began, the chase that would change both of our lives forever, testing our courage, our trust, and our will to survive. The world outside was cruel and unjust, but in that moment, we discovered something stronger, the human spirit's refusal to surrender. We ran, hearts pounding, into the unknown. Behind us, the danger closed in. Ahead, the promise of hope shimmered faintly. But would we reach it? The first chapter of our story had ended, but the real journey, the battle for truth, justice, and survival, was only beginning. The sun had barely risen, casting long, trembling shadows across the ranch, when we realized the men chasing us were not ordinary bandits. Their movements were precise, almost military-like, and the glint of badges or insignias barely visible in the dawn light suggested something more sinister. Agents of authority, masked under guise of law. The realization sent a chill through me. Luyu's grip on my hand was iron-strong. Her face, streaked with rain and grime from the previous night, held a fierce determination that made me both anxious and awed. They won't stop, I said, panting as we ran across the uneven terrain toward the creek that bordered my property. They'll follow us wherever we go. She didn't answer immediately. Her dark eyes scanned the horizon, calculating every movement. They want the map, she said finally, her voice low, almost a whisper. They think I know where it is, where the gold is hidden. But I don't. Not exactly. I only know how to get there. I stopped mid-step. Nap? Gold. My mind raced. How did I go from a quiet life of tending my ranch to being part of some legend about Apache treasure? They killed my father, my brother, everyone who could help me, Luyu continued, her voice now hard, edged with grief and anger, all because of that map. And now, they think I'm the last one who can lead them to it. The weight of her words hit me like a hammer. This wasn't just survival. This was a fight for justice, for revenge, for something far bigger than either of us. I realized then that my role was not merely protect her. I had to be part of her mission, to help right the wrongs that had been done. Then we fight smart, I said, forcing courage into my own voice. We don't outrun them. We outthink them. Her lips curved into a faint, ironic smile. You have spirit, she said. Most men I've met would have dropped me where I fell. We ducked into the dense thicket near the creek, hearts hammering, listening to the sound behind us. The horses galloped past. The shouts grew louder, and I could hear the faint clatter of rifles being readied. Luyu crouched beside me, suddenly pressing a hand to my arm. They're splitting up, she whispered. One group will come after us directly. The others are circling around. They'll try to trap us. I nodded. Then we split, too. We lead them into the ravine. Her eyes widened. Are you crazy? No, I said firmly. We use the land we know to our advantage. Trust me. For the first time, she hesitated, then nodded slowly. There was that mix of fear and fierce determination again, the resilience that carried her this far. We moved quietly, following the narrow, hidden paths along the creek. Each step felt like walking on a knife's edge. One wrong move could mean death. Yet, through the tension, something remarkable happened. She began to speak of her family, her people, her life before the massacre. My mother taught me to read the land, Lu Yu said, her voice softer now. To understand the wind, the water, the shadows. She said, the earth will always tell the truth. Listen and you will survive. That's why I can do this. That's why I haven't been caught. Her words inspired me. Here was a woman, stripped of everything, facing enemies far more powerful than herself. Yet she didn't falter. She taught me courage, not by asking for it, but by showing it. Hours passed. We reached the ravine she had mentioned, a jagged stretch of rock and dense undergrowth. I set up a makeshift trap, using fallen branches and loose stones to create noise and misdirection. Lu Yu watched silently, her eyes calculating every angle. They'll fall right into it, she said quietly. I raised an eyebrow. And then, we run, she said simply. We run and disappear until they're gone. And then, her voice broke for a moment, heavy with grief. Then we reclaim what was stolen. The first sound came, a shout, a hoarse whinny, the click of a gun being cocked. They were close, too close. I signaled to Lu Yu. She nodded, her eyes locking with mine in a silent pact. We triggered the trap. Branches snapped. Stones tumbled down the ravine, and the agent stumbled into the noise confused. In that split second, we vanished into the underbrush, hearts pounding, lungs burning, adrenaline coursing like wildfire. We ran for what felt like hours, until the sun climbed high and the sound of pursuit faded. Finally, we collapsed under the shade of a large oak. Our clothes were torn, our bodies bruised, but the relief in that moment was tangible. I can't believe we survived, I said, gasping. Lu Yu smiled faintly. Survival is enough. We need justice. And justice will not be easy. I looked at her, seeing not a frightened refugee, but a warrior, resilient, unbroken, and full of purpose. I realized that this story wasn't just about outrunning the bad men. It was about reclaiming a stolen past, standing up against oppression, and refusing to surrender even when the odds were stacked impossibly high. Tomorrow, she said, we go to the place where it all began. And we make them pay not with death but with truth. Her words were chilling, yet filled with hope. In that moment, I understood that her strength was not just in survival, but in turning pain into action, fear into determination. And somehow, I knew that being beside her, I could find courage I never thought I had. But even as the sun rose higher, we knew the danger was far from over. They were still out there, relentless, and the closer we came to uncovering the truth, the more violent their pursuit will become. The day passed with tense preparation. Lu Yu mapped out our route, whispering instructions, teaching me to read the land as she had been taught. Every tree, every creek, every stone could be our ally or our doom. Night fell, and I realized how little we had slept, how exhausted we truly were. But there was no choice. The truth demanded action. And in the darkness, as we huddled near a fire that neither of us wanted to light too brightly, I saw something I hadn't expected. Lu Yu, vulnerable yet defiant, staring at the sky. Do you ever doubt yourself? I asked quietly. She shook her head. Doubt is for those who have no reason to fight. I have everything to fight for. And as her words settled over me, I understood that what lay ahead would test us in ways we could not yet imagine. Betrayal, danger, moral choices that cut to the core, all awaited us. And with that knowledge, we prepared to step into the heart of darkness. Because the next morning, we would face not only our enemies, but the truths we had been running from. Dawn broke like a pale promise, washing the ravine in mist and uncertainty. Every step we took was measured, deliberate. Lu Yu led, her senses sharp, her gaze scanning every rustle in the underbrush. I followed closely, still grappled with the reality of what we had committed ourselves to, a journey not just for survival, but for justice, and perhaps vengeance. The path ahead was treacherous, winding through rocky slopes and dense forest, where sunlight barely reached the ground. Luyu moved with the precision of someone who had spent her life reading the land, her eyes catching patterns I could never see, her ears catching whispers of movement in the distance. "They're close," she murmured, stopping abruptly. "Do you hear that?" I strained my ears. A faint whistle, almost imperceptible, carried through the trees. Then another and another, a code, a signal. My heart sank. They weren't just chasing us. They were organized. Every move we made was being tracked. "We have to split up," Luyu said, her voice steady but grim. "It's the only way to survive and keep the trail hidden." I hesitated. "Split up? That's dangerous. If something happens to you—" "No time for fear," she interrupted, eyes blazing. "We either act smart or we die together. I won't let them take us. Not now. Not after everything." Her conviction left me no choice. We separated, moving silently through parallel paths, every sense alert. I could feel her presence nearby, a tether that gave me courage despite the fear gnawing at my gut. Hours passed in tense silence, until I reached a clearing where the sun broke through, illuminating what I had feared to see. The village where Liyu's people had once lived, now a smoldering ruin. Charred remains of huts, broken tools, and a lingering scent of fire hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled forward, memories of her story filling my mind, and I finally understood the depth of her loss. "You didn't deserve this," I muttered, more to myself than anyone else. Then I heard her voice, soft, distant, but unmistakably hers. I turned to see Luyu standing atop a ridge, silhouetted against the morning sun. Her expression was unreadable, a mixture of sorrow and iron resolve. "They did this," she said quietly, "not just for greed, but to erase us, to erase everything we were. And they will do it again if we let them." I joined her on the ridge, and together we surveyed the ruins. The silence was deafening, broken only by the wind and the occasional creak of a dying tree. I wanted to speak, to offer words of comfort, but Luyu's gaze was fixed on the horizon, as if seeing a path only she could follow. "They think they can control history," she said finally, "but truth cannot be buried. Not by fire, not by fear." We moved closer to the remnants of a hut that had somehow survived the flames. Inside, among the ashes, were fragments of documents, maps, and personal belongings. Luyu knelt, carefully sifting through the charred papers. Her hands trembled, but her movements were precise. This is it," she whispered. "The proof, the map, my father's notes, everything they tried to destroy." I realized then the stakes were even higher than I had imagined. This wasn't just about survival. This was about reclaiming history, restoring what had been stolen, and bringing the perpetrators to justice. But before we could move, a sudden noise shattered the tense calm, a branch snapping, heavy footsteps on the ridge. The men had found us. "They're here," I said, drawing my revolver. My hand shook despite my resolve. Luyu stood, eyes blazing. "No," she said firmly. "We don't fight them with weapons. We fight them with truth. Follow my lead." I hesitated. "Truth? How?" She held up a document, partially charred but legible. "This proves everything. Their corruption, their crimes. If we expose them, no one can stop justice. Not even them." And then they appeared. 5 men, clad in uniforms that had once symbolized law and order, now twisted into instruments of greed and cruelty. Their leader, a tall man with a scar across his face, stepped forward. Recognition flickered in his eyes, a mixture of surprise and malice. "So the girl survived," he sneered. "And you're the fool who sheltered her?" I tightened my grip on the revolver, but Luyu stepped forward, her presence commanding. "This ends now," she said. "You cannot hide the truth. You cannot erase us. And you cannot escape justice." The tension was unbearable. For a moment, time seemed suspended, the past and present colliding in that clearing. Then, in a move I didn't expect, she unfurled the map and the documents, holding them high. "You think fear will make me silent?" she shouted. "You think killing us will bury the truth? My people live with honor, and their story will be heard. Every crime you committed will be revealed. And when the world knows, your power is gone." The men hesitated, the arrogance in their stance faltering. For the first time, I saw fear in their eyes, the fear of exposure, the fear of losing everything they had built on lies and violence. Lu Yu's voice rose, commanding, resolute. You cannot destroy what is right. You cannot silence what is true. And you will answer for every life you took, every injustice you inflicted. Justice will find you. The air was electric with tension. I realized then that she was not just fighting for survival. She was transforming pain into power, grief into courage, and fear into determination. And in that moment, I understood why I had been drawn into this journey. It was not about me protecting her. It was about witnessing the triumph of the human spirit, about seeing truth prevail against overwhelming odds. The men made a final, desperate move, stepping forward as if to snatch the documents. But Lu Yu was ready. She had anticipated this, and with a swift, precise motion, she activated a hidden signal, a flare that shot into the sky. In moments, the sound of approaching reinforcements filled the air, agents loyal not to corruption, but to law, drawn by the evidence Lu Yu had prepared. The tide turned. The men froze, realizing their authority had evaporated. Their bravado faltered, replaced by panic. And in that instant, I knew victory was not in violence, but in courage, preparation, and unyielding truth. But even as we watched them being taken into custody, a new challenge loomed. The map, the documents, the story, they were only the beginning. Someone higher up, someone more powerful, would not let this end quietly. Lu Yu turned to me, eyes fierce, determined. This is only the first step. We've won today, but the journey is far from over. I nodded, heart pounding, realizing that this woman, this Apache warrior, had not only survived unimaginable loss, but had ignited a fire within me I never knew existed. And together, we would face whatever darkness remained. The night before our final move, Lu Yu and I sat atop a cliff overlooking the valley where the ruins of her village still smoked faintly under the starlight. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a mixture of cold and hope. I could feel the weight of what lay ahead. The confrontation with the true orchestrator of her people's massacre, the man whose hands had stained the earth with blood and deceit. They think capturing my people, destroying my home, will erase us. Lu Yu said quietly, eyes fixed on the darkness below. They are wrong. We are not just survivors. We are witnesses. And witnesses have power. Her words were a spark that ignited something deep inside me. Courage, conviction, and the willingness to face danger not just for ourselves, but for truth. I realized that she had already taught me the most important lesson of this journey. Resilience is not the absence of fear. It is the mastery of it. At dawn, we moved. Using the map she had salvaged and the hidden paths her mother had taught her to read, we approached a fortified estate on the far side of the valley, the stronghold of the man who had orchestrated everything. Reports of his influence had filtered through every level of power, but Lu Yu had found his weakness, arrogance and underestimation of the very people he sought to destroy. We crept closer, shadows against shadows. Lu Yu paused, turning to me. Whatever happens, we stay together. If they take me, you have to survive and carry the truth forward. I shook my head. No, we face this together. Whatever comes, we face it as one. Her eyes softened for a moment, gratitude and determination shining through the fatigue and grief. Then let's end this, she whispered. Inside the estate, chaos awaited. Lu Yu had planned meticulously. The guards, confident in their numbers, did not expect anyone to breach the perimeter. With silent signals and precise timing, we disabled alarms, avoided patrols, and moved through corridors lined with portraits of the man's carefully curated image, an image that masked corruption and cruelty. Finally, we reached his private study. The door was heavy, reinforced, yet Lu Yu handled the lock with skill born of years surviving in the wilderness. The moment it swung open, we stepped into a room filled with evidence. Ledgers, letters, and photographs documenting atrocities, thefts, and lies. The proof of every crime against her people was there, irrefutable, undeniable. Then he appeared, the man who had haunted her nightmares, standing tall, smug, and confident. So you've come, he said, voice dripping with condescension. The little Apache girl and her companion. Do you really think you can bring me down? Lu Yu stepped forward, her hand steady on the documents. I don't think. I know. Every crime you committed is written here. And today, justice will be done. He laughed, but it was hollow, unconvincing. Justice? You think exposing me will matter? Power isn't something people surrender. Power is nothing without truth, Liu said, her voice rising, commanding, resonant. You built your empire on lies, fear, and blood. Today, the truth rises, and it is stronger than your cruelty. At that moment, the authorities arrived, agents loyal to law, summoned quietly with the evidence Liu had prepared. The man's confident facade shattered as his guards were disarmed, one by one. Cornered, he realized that control could not be maintained through intimidation alone. The law, guided by undeniable evidence, had found him. Liu handed the documents to the lead officer, her eyes never leaving his face. This is for my people, for every life you destroyed, and for the world to know the truth. The man tried one final bluff, but it failed. The weight of justice, the truth of countless victims, and Liu's unwavering resolve were too powerful. He was taken into custody, his influence evaporating like mist in the morning sun. As the sun climbed, lighting the valley in gold, Liu and I walked through the ruins of her village. Together, we began the work of restoration, retrieving what could be salvaged, recording stories of those lost, and honoring their memory. The pain was still there, heavy and palpable, but so was hope. Hope that what had been stolen could be remembered, preserved, and transformed into something greater. I turned to Liu. You did it. You faced them all and won. She shook her head, smiling faintly. We did it. Together. Survival was never enough. We had to fight for truth, for justice, and for the future. Her words echoed in me, a reminder that courage is contagious, and that ordinary people like us, can do extraordinary things when driven by principle and resilience. Months later, the valley began to heal. The stories of Liu's people were told openly, their heritage preserved, and the man who had tried to erase them was nothing more than a cautionary tale of greed and corruption. Liu became a symbol of strength and resistance, her story inspiring countless others to stand against injustice, no matter how impossible the odds. As for me, I returned to my ranch, forever changed. The woman who had entered my granary, trembling and desperate, had awakened something within me, an understanding of bravery, truth, and the power of resilience. And whenever I looked at the horizon, I remember her words. Fear is temporary. Truth is eternal. And courage can change the world. In the end, it was not just justice that triumphed, but hope, inspiration, and the unbreakable human spirit. And though the journey had begun in fear and uncertainty, it ended in a light that no darkness could extinguish. Because even in the harshest winters of life, the fire of resilience can ignite the dawn,